Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here. And tonight we're going to be talking about sales pages. We're going to talk about sales pages. Now, one of the first things you're going to do, obviously, is you're going to, in the same way, even before you start editing the sales pages, is you want to go ahead and upload your sales pages to the server. And that's going to work the very same way as we've been working with the sales pages before. I'm going to grab the sales pages here in this area. And I'm just going to grab the sales letter and thank you page. Here's the sales page. Here are all our sales page files. So I'm going to go ahead and just open up our FileZilla. And what you're going to do when you get your server up and loaded, I'm going to load this off camera. And then once I get into this, once I get into my site, then I'm going to come back on. And let's see, I think we are there. Okay, we're now open. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go inside of the public HTML folder. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go inside of this folder again that says 60 minutes. Now we've already set up a squeeze page there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete those files for now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload the website files to that directory. Right, now you would obviously create and choose a directory that you want it to be. I'm placing this in the same directory that we were working in before. I'm just going to drag and drop those files into the directory. And once I drag and drop those files into the directory, I can then click copy URL to clipboard. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up an incognito browser here inside of Internet Explorer. And you can do whichever one you want. I'm going to change this URL. I'm going to change this URL here. Make sure we have the HTTP. And then click enter. And then we have our content. Right, so there are our sales pages. Now, obviously, our buttons we don't have anything in the button area. So once we do that, we're going to edit our pages using our HTML editor. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the file where those sales pages are, and then I'm going to edit the index file. And I'm going to go and open this with. Now, I'm using Dreamweaver. You can use whatever HTML editor that you want to use. I'm going to open this up with Adobe Dreamweaver. And that's going to give me this index file. I'm going to close these others here. And remember, I always want to use the split screen between the actual page and then the code here. Right, and so the way this works in Dreamweaver, and generally any HTML software that you're going to be working with, if I highlight a particular word, you're going to see that same word highlighted inside of the code. I can go to the code and do the same thing. I can do it backwards. If I want to highlight something in the code, then Dreamweaver will find that on the HTML page. Now, if you're going to be doing an upsell, you can upload the upsell page also. One of the things that you want to do if you're going to make changes to a sales page is you need to decide ahead of time what you're going to change. And here's what I mean by that. I'm going to go back to this page. I'm going to look at this page, and I'm going to want to know what I'm going to write in. For example, I'm going to want to change any of this paragraph or any of these words. I'm going to want to know that ahead of time. I'm going to want to know what I'm going to be doing to these subhead lines. If I want to change one of the images, I'm going to want to know that ahead of time, right? And I'm going to know what I want to write here. And that's going to be pretty important because you don't want to start working with the code and making decisions about what you want to write while you're doing it. you really want to have an idea of what you want to say before you actually say it. Because again, then the changes are actually going to be able to go fast, and then we're going to be able to focus on doing things like adding in our bonus. Okay, now to make things easier, you want to try to make your changes in the code and not in the WYSIWYG. Well, let me show you what I mean by that. Now, if I'm going to make changes to any of this content, I really don't want to write those changes in here and start making changes in the WYSIWYG editor. I'd much rather make the changes inside of the code, because it's going to be easy for us to walk or in other words, code over something. It's very easy to do that. For example, if I put my cursor here, and let's say that what I do is I then start to delete the periods, I could delete this paragraph line without meaning to. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to change the shape of the page, and that's not what you want to do. I'm going to actually now go back to undo delete. And you're going to see now that this paragraph notation is back in there. And again, if I do that, I'm going to make sure I keep the structure of the page, and I'm going to keep the general look of the page. And so if I want to keep the general look of the page, I can make the changes, even though I'm going to be changing the same words, I want to make them here and not in this area. So let's say that I want to change this from constantly struggling to, if you're struggling, to do instead of write your own content. Now let's say then that I want to see what that's going to look like after I've made the changes in the code. All I need to do then is I'm going to then click inside of this WYSIWYG area. You're going to see that change, right? But you want to make the edits here inside of the code if you can. Now that might mean that you're going to need to know a little HTML, but even if you don't know HTML, you can pretty much see where the words are. And if you can tell where the words are, all you've got to do is highlight them. You'll be able to see them inside of this area, right? So let's say we want to change how to create tons of quality content, not high quality content. I'm going to make the changes in the code. I'm going to see it here. You'll notice here that I've still got the word high quality content, but then once I've made this change, all I've got to do is I've got to click inside of here. You're going to see that high, the word high, go away. Right, so again, anytime you want to make changes, you can highlight them here, then go to the code and make the change. It says if you can speak it, I'm going to then take this then out. I'm going to make this a semicolon. Now I'm not going to see the change here, remember, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click inside of here, and then I can see the change in terms of what it's going to look like. Now, if I want to make changes and I want to tell what those changes are going to look like as I go, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to save this page as something. And just as I did before, I'm going to make this the number 2 then index. And then I'm going to click save. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to now go back to my folder. And if I want to know what this page is going to look like inside of my browser, all I've got to do then is click this link to the HTML page, and then my browser is going to pull up that page. Right, and then we can see some of the changes that we've made here, and we can see them as we go. You can see the colon we put there. You can see the content that we've changed there. What you can also see is that I have retained the basic structure of the page. So I haven't lost the structure of the page. And the way that I do that is I make sure that when I'm making the changes, right, when I'm making the changes, I'm making the change inside of the code. Right? So if I want to change, let's say I want to change this part of the headline. want a faster way to develop content, right? And so I'm not gonna make the change up here, even though I can, right? Because again, what's easy for me to do? Let's say that I put my cursor here and that what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to eliminate some things here. You'll notice that I have the italics here. And what I can do almost by accident is I can then click that. And you'll notice how the line has changed, right? Well, that's easy to do if I do that inside of here, right? And what happens here is you'll notice then that I start getting a little code mixed up here when if I just make the changes inside of the code, it's going to be easier for me to keep track of what's happening. Okay, so now for the sake of going back, I'm going to undo edit source. That's going to bring that back. I'm going to undo delete. That's going to bring that back. So instead of making those changes up there, what am I going to do? I'm going to place my cursor here. And then I'm going to write in here what I want it to be and make the changes here. Want a better way. If I want to see it, I'm going to click inside of the page, and then I see my changes inside of the page. Okay, so now what I want to do is, remember, one of the things that I suggest that you do with all of your PLR offers is you add in a bonus. And so what I need to do then is I need to find a place where I can add in a bonus easily, right? So what if I go back here? Well, let's take a look at the page again to see where we might add in a bonus, right? There's the introduction. Okay, I might add in my bonus here. Right? So really, instead of working with this image, now again, this is a second call to action, but I'm actually going to change this call to action to my bonus, right? Maybe that's what I want to do. So I'm going to have to take note of a couple of things. Number one, I'm going to want to know the dimensions of this image. Now I can look inside of my folder and I can find out what those dimensions are. So I'm going to go inside of there. I'm going to go inside of my images. And then I'm just going to hover over that image if I'm in Windows. I'm going to see that this image is going to be 1,000. Let's go back. It's going to be 1,000 by 731. Right? So in general, I don't want my image to be bigger than that. I can have my image to be smaller than that. Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to this area of my document. I'm going to do that inside the HTML. I'm going to go to the sales page. I'm now going to go back and look at this here. And I want to find that spot in my page. Okay, so we've got this image in here. And what you're going to notice here is that it doesn't really resize the image. So that's going to be a true size of the image, right? So 1,000 by 731 is the size of the image. What we don't want to do is we don't want to mess with this image too much so that we change the structure of the page, right? So what are we going to do here? What do we notice here? Well, one of the things we notice is that this area of our page sources an image. It sources images/combo.png. Right? So let's find that inside of our folder. Right? And so here is that image. It's combo.png. And remember, this image is going to be 1,000 by 731. So what am I going to do here? I'm going to find an image. And let's say that we work with this image. This image is going to be 500 by 315. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back to my folder. I'm going to add in the image of my bonus. right? So what am I going to do now? Well, I'm going to change the name of this bonus offer, right? Just so that, and I like to make sure that there are no spaces in there, right? Just less that I'll have an opportunity to mess up. So now I've got an image here that's called bonus dash offer. Right? What am I going to do now? Well, I'm going to go to where this image is. I'm going to change this. I'm now going to make this not combo.png. I'm going to change this in the code to bonus dash offer. And Dreamweaver has already found the image. So all I've got to do is click that. Okay, so now I've got this change. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to click inside of this area so I can see it in the page. Right, and that's kind of small, but it's there. Now, what I want to do now is I want to save this. I'm going to save this as this page. I'm going to overwrite that. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm now going to then check that page. Okay, so the page is the same. And now I should have my bonus image there. And there it is. So what do I want to do now? Well, now what I want to do is I want to change this text so that it says something about and get this awesome bonus or something like that, right? So I'm going to go back here. And I'm now going to go back to my edit screen. I'm going to go back to this index page where I've been editing. I'm going to go back to that section. Actually, I want to go to index 2, yeah. I just want to change the text to this. Now, this is the easiest way for me to add in a bonus. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my split screen where I can see the code and design at the same time. I'm going to double click this so I can find the code. Right, so there's my code. Click this button now to get to this instant access. So what do I want to do? Well, maybe click the button now to let's say, also get access to, I'm going to change this where it says instant access. I'm going to say that. Also get access to this. And now I'm going to change this wording that says bonus video training. I'm going to call video training. I'm going to call this bonus video course on Bitcoin. I'm going to click in here. Okay, that doesn't look exactly the way I want. So I'm going to need to know a little bit of code. What I'm going to do is I'm either going to take some of this wording out of here, and I can do that very easily. If I go inside the code, I delete that text, and then I've got some text here where I have added in my bonus. If you're with me on adding in the bonus to our sales page, right? So pretty much what you want to do is find an easy place to put your bonus in there, right? So it's not always going to be obvious. Every sales page is going to be different. You want to do this in the easiest possible way that you can if you don't know HTML code. Now, if you know HTML code, then of course you can just go right into the code and you can redo the code to make sure that you understand and you'll have it there where you want it. However, if you don't know HTML code, you're going to want to try to find an easy place where you can add in an image as well as change the text. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to save this. And then I'm going to go back. I'm going to check my page again. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom. Also get access to this bonus video course, and then I've got my bonus image, and then I've got my pay button. Right? I can also place some text at the bottom if I want to, right? I could place some text underneath there, and I could be getting a little ambitious there, but I could do that, right? So all I got to do here is find my image, find a divider, and then I want to put that image, I want to put that text right underneath this image. I can also do that. Okay, so we've looked for an easy way to add in a bonus. Typically means copying one section and pasting it in. In this case, all we did was we added in an image. We also paid attention to the image size, right? We made sure that our image was not going to be larger than the space because we don't want to break the frame. Okay, so now the last thing we need to do to this sales page is we're going to need to decide on how we're going to take payment. And we will discuss that in the last section of this course on mapping and testing, right? And then we'll also do the last thing, which is to place the button code on your sales page to finish the process.